Hey neighbors, the handyman here with Initiative Coffee Company, along with the Serpent of Rama himself, Jake Del Maro. Today we're talking about DDEX-02-10 Cloaks and Shadows. Writer Will Doyle, editors Claire Hoffman, Chris Tulech, and Travis Woodall. General notes, this is a 4-hour mod for Tier 1 play, tuned for 5 third-level characters. It features an elaborate investigation with strong opportunities for role-playing combat. The party is being framed for murder. Part 1, the interview. Cloak agent Sel Tregarthen takes an aggressive interest in the party. Sel is convinced the Cloaks are interested in the party's services. It doesn't seem like he'll take no for an answer until the assassination. A floating orb of darkness approaches the party's balcony. When it clears Sel is dead, the orb moves to the northeast. Escaping the theater. The numbers are pretty overwhelming despite the likely wish of your players to fight the Cloaks. They should probably leave the theater and blend into the crowd. Once they get outside the theater, the party will have to come up with a plan to clear their name. This is a pretty...
I think my favorite part of it is the blatant... Like, I'm jumping straight to, like, the escaping the theater part, and then I'll Quentin Tarantino myself back.
Right.
But, like, the blatant disregard of the guards just like shooting into crowds.
Yeah.
Just like they're like, you know what? You're starting to they murdered the Cloak, kill them. Shing, 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 and just firing at people. Like there's zero regard to what's going on, and I absolutely love it.
In their defense, there is a long-standing history of ineptitude of the guards in Mulemaster. This does not seem at all out of character for them. A couple of notes here to start. Like,
sure.
The right spells here are going to end the mod in 5 minutes, right? So if if somebody casts Earthbind on the floating orb as it flies away, mod's over. If somebody has Mind Spike, mod is over. Anyway,
hold person. There's quite a bit of spells here. Kudos to the players taking.
Sure,
I mean, Mind Spike's a little bit, but
if you've got a divination wizard, they better be taking Mind Spike.
Like it is one of my bugaboos. The mod, I can appreciate it because it's like you need a perception check to see that this stuff's going away.
There's a lot of steps involved to get there.
Yeah, so like it's kind of a running joke I've had because I have not failed at having my parties have not failed of someone. Just like in they're good friends of mine that like think outside the box and will have X, Y, and Z spell, and then I make the joke like, "Hey, do you guys want to play this mod, or do you guys want to get out of here in 5 minutes?"
Right.
And
I think it's important to realize that like when this mod came out, a lot of those spells weren't available. Like Xanthar's Guide wasn't out yet, right? So they weren't thinking about that. But Earth Grasp is a spell that came out with the Elemental Evil Player's Guide and is exclusive to Season 2. So there's not really an excuse to you can't hand wave away Earth Grab or like hold person. Like if somebody gets a hold person off.
Yeah, the guy's sinking.
There's a lot of ways that I guess as a DM you could fudge the roll or
oh no, I like rewarding my characters in that. Yeah. And, I like being like, hey, but there's also a part where because they did something, they find a piece of clay. That's the kind of my hey, thanks for playing along.
Right, the pebble or whatever.
Like the pebble that has the different colored dirt or whatever. And that's something that can help them out. It's like my hey, thanks for letting me play this. Thanks for letting me run this mod.
Right.
And there's other ways you can grab that, but that's beside. It's neither here nor there. Sure. I'm gonna go back to the first part. I think this is a very cool way to begin your story. You're given an invite. If you haven't listened to me ramble about the last 10 times, find a way to get an invite. I mean, they're locally. They're going to a theater. Cool. Awesome.
Honestly, I don't know that you need a way. The lead-in could be, you guys went to the theater. You know what I mean? That's not a completely outrageous, that doesn't seem
Players
like
doing something on their own seems ridiculous, though.
And it doesn't seem like an egregious step to say, like, as a group, you decided to go to the theater. That's crazy. Good for you, you know? It's not the same as, like, I'm conscripting you to do a thing, right? I do like that from the get-go there is action and there are stakes to this mod, right? Like, immediately your players are wanted for murder.
Yep.
And, like, have to clear their name or they'll be taken in for murder. Like,
it was a very easy framing for murder. It was, like, almost too good. It was like, then why was your name on this player handout?
Right.
And it's your names. And I always try to make it funny. Like they had, like, the blood splattering and it's, like, their name's in pencil.
Right.
And, like, it looks really goofy. And it's, like,
somebody
here,
taped
and
a
then
printout
dead.
of their name on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the next thing you know, this guy's dead. And, like, it looks so obvious. It's so, I don't even say Jason Bourne-esque. It looks so, like, ridiculous, like, murder. And then, like, there's no rhyme or reason. There's, like, kill him! And then you just have, you know, people just shooting at each other.
Just into crowds. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else I can really say about it. This is just an awesome beginning to a mod with, like, reckless abandon of
it just shows like the lack of like awareness of the guards of Molemaster. Like, the people you're sworn to protect, you don't give a shit about. You're just shooting randomly into crowds hoping you might hit the right person, right?
Yeah.
Like, it shows just like a complete ineptitude and like lack of critical thinking on the part of the guards. I mean, it's I guess like a fun plot. I don't know. Fun seems like the wrong word, but
so yeah, back to the whole thing. I love it. It's fun to do. It's a fun mod. There's a lot of handouts. It's not in a bad way. Like, they're very, like, you get like a newspaper clipping and like that's cool.
And we'll go into that as they come up, I think. But it's I like it because, like, from the get-go there are stakes. Your character's involved. Your characters can't not be involved, right?
Yeah.
Like, immediately, like, action is happening. So part 2, the investigation begins. Managing the manhunt. Part 2 tasks the party with tracking down the culprit, escaping the capture of the cloaks, and clearing their names. Locations of note: there are 3 featured places in this section: an Arcana shop in Fireball Alley called Drakewell's Arcana, Troglov Square, where a man just fell screaming from the sky, and the Inventor's Workshop. While exploring these locations, the party will be responsible for stealth checks to avoid confrontations with the cloaks. Eventually, the party will gain enough clues to either check out the gang of Kenku in the Zent Ghetto or unmask a noble as a member of the Earth Cult. I like this part of the module. I like this module in general. I know that in the past I have talked about, like, information scavenger hunts. And I know that this seems like it could just be another one of those. But it's different insofar as the clues you derive from each location don't just lead you to the next location that then leads you to the next location. Like, all of the clues seem to fit together in a meaningful way that gives you more information when the parts are combined about who is at fault for this murder, right? And I think that is the difference between this mod and one that, like, you go to place A tells you to go to place B tells you to go to place C says that guy is the villain, go kill him. Right? Like, it's very much seems like there are reasons to, like, go to these locations, go back to these locations, like, really sit down and put the clues together and see how they match up. And it's presented in a way that feels like you're actually solving a mystery rather than just, like, along for the ride.
I think Will Doyle did this right. Mm-hmm. I think he made it a very engaging just hunt for info. Mm-hmm. And, like, as a DM, first and foremost, you need to be prepped for this. Yeah, this is a lot of stuff. And, like, not only that, there's an entire, like, map of Molemaster where you are now responsible to, like, just, like, hey, you're going between precinct to precinct to precinct, or I guess area to area to area. Mm-hmm. And you encounter stuff that's going to slow stuff down.
Yeah.
I just, this is a very, I don't think I even run this right, because it's to the degree of like I don't like running combats like just like a lot of combats, because it drags. I would rather skip combats in favor of like, ooh, we're doing a little bit of investigation.
Right.
Definitely when it's like 6 guards or 4 guards and
For sure.
a dog, and I'm like, okay, I'd rather just throw more stuff at you at the end. Like, and I contradict myself in the last video where I say I like how we're at a constant 7.
Yeah.
But like, I'd almost rather be at a constant 7 for most of it, but like, don't give me like a 1.5. Like,
yeah,
I don't think that's fun.
Yeah, and it's not like a peak, right? Like that's the thing, is like a lot of mods are like you're at a 10, the rest of the mod is a 1, right? I think this like constant 7 is nice because like it keeps players engaged the whole time, rather than like these spurts of them checking out.
Yeah.
In ways that are really like detrimental to the table and kind of the flow of the story, the flow of the narrative. Yeah, I think like the big thing about these locations is there's something other than a person there to tell you to go somewhere else, right? Like at all of these locations, there are not only clues to find, there is color about the town.
Yep.
There are interesting like events that have just occurred. Yep. There's neat things to do and like tools to mess with. You know, the Inventors Workshop has a literal flying machine that you escape on.
Yep.
With like guards pounding on the door, you know? So I think there's enough here that like it doesn't feel the same way as like go here, now go there, now go there, now go there. It doesn't feel like a task list. It feels like an investigation throughout.
Yes, I agree.
Part 3, the plot thickens. Zent Ghetto. When the party gains enough clues to investigate the Zent Ghetto and the gang of Kenku, they will confess to spying for a cultist named Little Wing in the abandoned windmill. Drezhkov's mansion. Alternatively, the party may attempt a direct move against Zor Drezhkov, who has already fled his mansion due to an attack and arson. After the group perception or persuasion checks, the party can catch up with the Zor. He directs the party to the abandoned windmill. 2 different ways to get to the same place. This is what I mean. There's like different aspects that can lead you to the solution, right? Like I wouldn't say you need to do both of these. I can't think of
need to do one.
Yeah, I can't think of a reason to do both of these. Frankly, like either one of them is interesting. If you don't want to have another mansion on fire for the 4th time this season, go with the Zent Ghetto. Otherwise, Drezhkov's mansion is there to continue the arsony of Molemaster.
It's called free real estate. But I honestly don't think I've run the Zor Drezhkov part because people just enjoy dealing with Kenku instead. Because that is a game of charades that I will never give up.
Right. It
is absolutely amazing. They're like birds, and it's like, yeah, they're birds. Like they're birds. Like, you know, it's fun. So I don't think I've ever ran Zor. Both scenes are very fun to run.
Sure.
And I guess I'm gonna go back to the Kenku scene. There's a girl in there that's supposed to be like their translator, but like she's just as lost. I play her like almost like I don't know. I was kidnapped. Why would I understand them?
Right.
And like, I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to do. And I kind of, I don't say mock my players, but like when they tell me something, I repeat it to them as how they said it. And then they're like, why'd you say it back to me? I'm like, because I have because the Kenku.
Right. Perfect.
Either way.
Part 4, storming the windmill. The abandoned windmill, the party will have to fight their way up the windmill against cult assassins and runes that lead to wind spells. After fighting off Little Wing goons, a showdown with the local leader of the cult is inevitable. The party will have the chance to take out Little Wing immediately, but the cultist will do all he can to escape. He or she, I'm not sure they give him or her a gender. He, she, they. I don't know that it's a gendered character. Sky Chase. The cultist will use his magic item to try and flee the windmill by leaping out of the top floor. Party members engage in an exploration challenge to catch Little Wing, gaining or losing ground on the cultist depending on their roles. The chases include potential complications to challenges as the party moves more. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the notion of like a final exploration send off to this mod is a cool one. I think I've played it twice, and he hasn't ever gotten out of the mansion.
Critical spells. Hold person.
Yeah, hold person. A
Grasp.
character with a grappler build.
Literally,
which are
guy
few
can't
and
get
far
away.
between.
Though I have to say, making use of those wind traps is exponentially funnier than anything else.
Right,
When
it's a little tiny reverse gravity spell, and it's delightful.
it's bang, and and then they go, and then you say to them, "I make tweaks here because whatever reason," and I reignite those traps, and then the guy steps back on it, bang, and it just hits the wall again. It is really funny seeing a player go like
make the same
and almost
mistake
describe, don't even
over
tell
again.
what it's happening to the player that this is happening to, but like being like, hey, other player, what you realize, you see this guy just lose his footing, and by lose his footing I mean slam into the ceiling
Just
and then hit the
falls up.
ground again. Yeah, falls upwards.
I guess be prepared for your players to try to take advantage of these traps to like get up the stairs quick. Maybe that's just because that's how my brain works, but it's another like environmental thing that is meant to harm the players, but can frankly be used to their advantage as well. The final combat is, once you get up there and only have Little Wing left to deal with, it's not a super challenging combat. It's not meant to be. He's meant to like fly away. Sometimes he will do that. Sometimes your players will find creative ways to keep him from doing that. I don't know that forcing him getting away is valuable. If your players can find ways to lock him down, I would say go ahead and do that.
I do appreciate something, and this kind of like this skirts the line of like appropriate chase tables, because like I feel bad for addressing entirety of Adventures League here because it doesn't apply all over the place. But sometimes what happens is you'll have street encounters, or you'll have these same types of encounters where they are not appropriately adjusted in terms of like what is stated. It's like there's a bump in the road, but I'm flying. Like this chase complication table is actually appropriate. And it's the same, and like I the big culprit here, if I remember correctly, is the Griffin chase in the Reclamation of Flan, where it's like, yeah, we're like 2 miles above the city or something, or it was something ridiculous, and it's like, and you smash into a side of a building, and you're like, what? Okay. So like, I do appreciate the fact that if you go on a chase sequence, it's like this sequence is properly edited.
It's custom to this module.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not like you're running into a parade, and like that's something I harp on a lot because like I don't like running chase sequences because it gets old fast.
Sure.
It's like, oh, you ran through the 10th, and then you run through the 10th flock of birds. Yeah. It's like, oh, awesome, great.
I guess the other note I have on this chase sequence is there's no narrative for if it happens, but the mod specifically outlines that like Little Wing could get away.
Yeah.
It doesn't list like what the consequences are of failure. So as a DM, you'll kind of have to come up with those. I guess just be creative as much as you can. It's clear that the mod intends for your players to catch up, and frankly, like gives your players enough opportunity that they have to be having a really rough day in terms of die rolls to not be successful. Yeah. But I've sat at enough tables with enough people who can't roll for their lives that it's possible, right? Yeah. So just keep that in mind. Any other final comments?
I think just the biggest thing is like it's a fun mod. It's
tons of prep. Tons of prep is involved. It is super rewarding if you can do the prep. There's lots of maps. There's lots of handouts. I know that can get to be burdensome, but frankly, it's worth it.
I think that the big thing to note is it's cool when you put an investigation together. Mm-hmm. And the newspaper is awesome. It's super cool. The other thing to note is that it's just you will not run 2/3 or a third of this mod because they will go to a different location, and then you will either run the Zent Ghetto part or you'll run the On Fire Mansion part. Right. So like you're prepping extra, which isn't a bad thing. It's just it sometimes stinks when you're doing that, but like, just be prepared to run stuff. People can get captured. Just be ready to like play on the fly on this one. So like, there's a lot of prep, but there's also a lot of like flying from the seat of your pants.
I will say that like this is a good mod to point to, and I don't know that we've addressed it before, but if you are not typically an Adventures League person, this is a good mod to look at in terms of like how to organize an investigation based module or homebrew like one shot or whatever. If you're like trying to come up with an investigation, like this is a good thing to look at, and like what clues do I need to leave where? Are handouts valuable? What types of locations seem reasonable? Where can like the final confrontation be? I think Will Doyle did a really good job at kind of laying all those things out. It makes me excited to like look at other modules he's written, because I have a lot of faith in him as a writer after reading this mod, because it's not an easy thing to do, to write an investigation where all of these different clues lead to the same location and fit in meaningful ways.
Exactly.
So there it is, DDEX-02-10 Cloaks and Shadows. Thank you so much for listening to some advice to streamline and run it for your tables. Be a good neighbor, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon. From now until the next time, roll together.